The sports hit list by the fans and for the fans. Carl Coulons with another special Zoom edition. The NBA Finals MVP versus the NBA regular season MVP. I'm here with a very special panel. We have Branden, Falco. Branden, welcome to the show, man. You have a new podcast out there. Takeaway Falco, is that what it's called?
The Falco Takeaway.
The Falco Takeaway. We have Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Words podcast. How you doing, bro?
What's going on, Carl? What up?
And we also have Andres. Andres, what's going on, man?
Going on, Carl. Pleasure to have me. Thank you.
And today's question is brought to you by Mr. Falco himself. Branden felt it was really important we touch upon the topic NBA Finals MVP versus NBA regular season MVP, and which means more to a player's legacy. I'm going to open the floor to Branden or Andres. You guys can start. It's going to be, the format is myself and Marcus for the first time teaming up against Branden and Andres in this discussion. So you gentlemen want to open the floor?
Yeah, absolutely. First things first, I want to thank you for having me on the show. And before you start screaming and yelling over me, I just want to have a few parts. First things first, I've heard that the narrative that the regular season in the NBA doesn't matter. Why is that? Because usually for the most part, we can predict the conference finals for the most part. And by 20, 25 games into the regular season, we can predict the majority of the seedings in each respective conference. Next part, we remember stars and legacies for their heroic performances in finals. We remember Dwayne Wade for his 2006 finals performance, the 35 points a game in that Dallas series. We remember LeBron James for the 3-1 comeback in 2016. We remember Jordan for his 41 point per game 93 finals. And the last thing is, I was told that it's more impressive to be great for 82 games than 4 to 7 games, because anyone could get hot in 4 to 7 games. So what you're telling me is anyone can get hot in 4 to 7 games in just random games. That's what you're telling me basically about those 4 to 7 games. So Kawhi, KD, and LeBron just happened to get hot. The floor is yours.
Well, great opening statement by Branden. Marcus, do you have a rebuttal for that nice soliloquy?
Yes, I do. It was not a great opening statement. Let me ask you something real quick, Branden, and then I'll jump into my portion. Do you remember Andre Iguodala's performance in the 2015 NBA Finals? Was that memorable?
I absolutely do.
Was it memorable to you?
Yes, Andres, do you want to chime in on that one?
No, I asked you. I didn't ask Andres. I'm asking you. Was it memorable to you? Yes or no?
Yes, it was very memorable.
Okay, cool. Let me jump right into this. So when we're talking about the regular season MVP, first of all, the regular season MVP is more important to a superstar's legacy because it's harder to obtain. The reality of the situation is that a player has more opportunities at the regular season MVP than a finals MVP. I wouldn't sit here with a straight face and tell you that championships or finals MVPs aren't important to a superstar's legacy. But when we look at some of the all-time greats in NBA history, whether it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whether it's Michael Jordan, whether it's Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, or LeBron James, one of the things that they have in common is that they have won the MVP award on multiple occasions. Multiple, not meaning one, not meaning two. I'm talking about 3, 4, 5 instances where they were the best player in the league. Now, we look at the finals MVP. Branden got ahead of himself because he said it. The narrative is that, well, anybody can just get hot for a 4 to 7 game stretch, whereas the regular season MVP is an 82-game grind, which means you have to travel from city to city, and it means over the course of 6 months, that's how long an NBA season is, you are considered the best player. Now, in order to make the playoffs, you generally have to be good or dominant in the regular season.
Good. Keyword good.
Say it again?
Keyword is good.
Don't interrupt me when I'm talking. Generally, during the regular season, you have to be dominant. There are not too many times in NBA history, I can't think of one off the top of my head, where someone who was awarded the MVP award was unworthy. I might disagree, which I know Branden is going to bring up later on in the show, with the last 3 players who won the MVP award. But by and large, there was an argument to be made for them. I'm going to turn it over to, I believe it's Andres' turn, and then I'll finish cooking y'all throughout the rest of the show.
Please just bring up the 2015 finals, please, Andres.
Well, first of all, right off the bat, Carl, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. Like Branden said, we remember stars for their performances in the finals. We don't remember for what they did in the regular season. A good example would be Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. After the Lakers won that three-peat, right, everyone was saying how Shaq carried Kobe, how Shaq did everything, and how Kobe couldn't win without Shaq. And in 2008, he wins the MVP, and they lose the finals, right? And everyone's thinking, shout out to your Celtics, Carl. And everyone's thinking, oh, here we go again. Kobe Bryant can't do it. Kobe Bryant can't do it. So Kobe comes back the next year, and he averages 32 points against the Magic, and the Lakers win the finals, and Kobe is finals MVP. And that's when everyone started to saying, like, holy crap, he could win without Shaq. So he didn't win in the NBA MVP. He wanted in the finals. And when he won in the finals, everyone was like, you know what? Kobe can win without Shaq. The discussion is over. Kobe himself, he said it. He was like, you know, I finally got that first one without Shaq, and now people are going to start to value me for the player that I am.
Okay, so are you both done now? Because according to Branden, I like to speak and not let people speak. So I just want to make sure I have the floor to speak now.
Just say it already. Stop peeing on me and telling me it's rain.
I'm not going to say that. I just want to make sure that we're clear that I have the floor to speak now, because you say I like to yell. So so now I can make my points, right? Okay. So that being said, give me 1 second here.
Whipping out the notes. It's about to get real.
I have to. So I did my research. I love doing research, and the first thing I want to touch upon is that Kareem won six titles. Do you guys know how many Finals MVPs he won? He only won two. So again, we know that he won 6 MVPs. So we know that his legacy was already great, and he didn't need the Finals MVPs to be great for his legacy. Isaiah Thomas, another NBA Hall of Famer, he won 2 NBA championships, but the first NBA championship they won, he did not win the Finals MVP. Did you not know Isaiah was great before that hand? You knew he was great. He didn't need the Finals MVP to be great. He won it in second. I'm not done. Nope. You had your chance. Let me speak now. Okay? There you go. So my third point, Michael Jordan said it in the documentary. In 1997, he said he had a chip on his shoulder going into that finals. Why did he have a chip on his shoulder? Because Karl Malone won MVP. That's what he said in the documentary. I'm not done yet. He said it. Those were Michael Jordan's words. He said he had a chip on his shoulder because he felt he should have won the MVP trophy. Another point I have, on April 8th, I specifically asked in the Sports Hit List group, name me your top 10 point guards of all time. Do you know, Marcus, what Branden and Andre said? And I went back and I researched it, because research is very, very key. Both Andre specifically put Steph Curry top 2 in his point guard list. Branden put Steph Curry top 3 in his point guard list, in which they do not have, and Steph Curry does not have a Finals MVP trophy. So you knew that he was great, and he doesn't have a Finals MVP trophy. So how can you sit here and say you need it to be great? And I'm not finished yet. A lot of times we sit here and we judge players and we say, you know what? We have a list of players who did not win the MVP and how great would they look. Isaiah Thomas is on that list. Dwayne Wade, which is Andres' favorite player, is on that list of great players who did not win the MVP trophy. Not the Finals MVP trophy, but the MVP trophy. Okay? And my last point comes to this.
So you're proving my point. Continue.
So hold on. And my last point is this. My last point is this. We sit here and we have a press conference to honor the prestigious MVP trophy. We have guys sit there crying on stage. We all remember Kevin Durant 2014. Who's the real MVP? His mom. Derrick Rose, when he won his MVP, tears in his eyes. Who's the real MVP? He talks about his mom. LeBron James thanks Gloria James every single year he gets the MVP and how important that is to him. All right, last year, Giannis Antetokounmpo accepts the award. His father passed away, tears falling down his eyes, and how much it meant for him to be the greatest player in the NBA. The NBA has to understand this, and people have to understand this. The NBA regular season MVP trophy makes you are the best player for that year. How many times did James Harden cry that he didn't win how many times did James Harden cry? I'm not done. How many times did James Harden cry and say that, well, you know what? I deserve to win the MVP trophy. Multiple times, James Harden, right? Two times he said that. He wasn't talking about the Finals MVP. Again, players don't sit there and say, you know what? I didn't win the Finals MVP trophy. I'm upset about it. They're upset about not winning the MVP. The MVP means you're the best player. You worked your ass off during the summer to become the best player in the league. They care about that trophy.
You done yet?
I'm done.
Andres, before you chime in, I want you to touch on 2015. But to talk about James Harden.
Stop throwing him alley-oops. Stand on your own
Marcus,
feet.
No, Marcus, I'm talking. Be quiet. First of all, Carl, you said on camera to Marcus in the James Harden debate, a player of James Harden's caliber with the right supporting cast should be in the finals and win championships. Did you or did you say that?
Yes, I did. Oh, but I did not say Finals MVP, though. You can win the championship.
He's not done talking.
The Rockets
can win the championship. And that's my other point. You can win the championship. You can win the championship and not win Finals MVP and still be great. And the other part of it is, did you not know LeBron was great before he went to the finals? Did we not acknowledge LeBron was great?
Good point. He was known as a choker down to your Celtics 3-2 with 3 MVPs and 0 rings. He was known as a choker before that heroic Game 6 performance.
He still had a legacy that he was great. Did Michael not win an MVP before that? He was great.
He was not. He was not in the class where he is now. No way.
Carl, can you tag me in? Because I want to ask
tag.
Brendan
Hot
some
tag,
questions.
man. Go ahead, please.
Brendan, I'm going to read you 2 lists of players. Well, the first list has Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson. Now I'm going to read you a second list of players. These are all players who won finals MVPs. Paul Pierce, Tony Parker, Joe Dumars, Chauncey Billups, Kawhi Leonard, and Andre Iguodala. What is the fundamental difference between one list and the other?
Hold on. Let me add one more person to your list. James Worthy.
What's the fundamental difference, Brendan?
You're just bringing up points of who's the better MVPs versus finals MVPs.
Brendan, I asked you a simple question. What's the fundamental difference between those 2 lists? Because I'm going somewhere with this.
Get a narrative fit yours. That's what you did. That's all you did.
But here's where I'm going with it, right? So, and when the MVP is more prestigious for this reason. You're competing against 29 other teams. If you are considered one of the elite players in the NBA, every time you start a season, you are battling 435 other players for 82 games for that award. In a final series, are you going to sit here with a straight face, and this goes for you too, Andres, are you going to sit here with a straight face and tell me that even though Andre Iguodala won the finals MVP in 2015, that he was more integral or more instrumental in the Warriors reaching the finals and winning that championship than Steph Curry? Are you going to do that with a straight face? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
No, he can't because you had him on your list.
In the finals.
No, because Andres, you have to have a dominant regular season and there are rounds played before you get to the finals. So what you're telling me is out of that entire season, the most instrumental person in that series or Warriors organization was Andre Iguodala. Is that what you're telling me?
In the finals, he was, absolutely.
So then let me ask you guys this again. They're not going to answer questions. So then why did both of you have Steph Curry in your top 5 point guards all time?
But that goes beyond the point, though, because you think Isaiah Thomas is better than Steph Curry all time. Do you not?
Do I what?
Don't you think Isaiah Thomas is? You said
yes,
Isaiah
he is,
Thomas,
but that has nothing to do with his Finals MVP. And you guys just ignored my point. Why did you have Steph Curry in your top 5 all time, and he doesn't have a Finals MVP?
There's other guys who don't either.
Okay, he was already great, but you're not understanding me. You said, and I quote, Isaiah Thomas is better than Steph Curry all time, and Isaiah Thomas only has 1 Finals MVP and doesn't have a single MVP. Steph Curry has 2 MVPs, and you think that Isaiah is better than Steph Curry all time, despite the fact that Isaiah has 1 Finals MVP and Steph Curry has 0. So explain it to me, please.
Explain what? Isaiah was already great before he had the Finals MVP. It had nothing to do with.
But what defined his legacy was.
And my point again, you're not telling me anything because my point again, Steph Curry doesn't have one, and he's top 5. He doesn't have one, and you're saying it's part of his legacy. You already know Steph Curry was great before.
Look at the top 15 players of all time. They all have Finals MVP.
Do you not know Steph Curry was great before he won the Finals MVP? Yes or no?
Great, but hold on. To get to that point, he's known as coming up short in big moments. That's his reputation. That's holding back his legacy.
That's a false narrative.
Hey, Carl.
How is that a false narrative? It's a narrative the media created.
Go ahead, Marcus. Marcus, go ahead, bro.
Back to that.
Let Brendan
Steph Curry is 0 of 8 with a final shot of a playoff game. That's a fact. He has never hit a big shot, and a shooter of that caliber should deliver in those kind of moments at some point. So, yes,
Carl.
There's proven time and time again he's came up short in the playoffs.
Go ahead, Marcus. You got more notes because they seem to not be listening here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got more notes. So let me just address the elephant in the room, because whenever people are talking about, the regular season MVP is so devalued, they highlight Steve Nash when he went back to back. Whether you believe there was some politics in that decision, here's the reality of the situation. The Phoenix Suns had the best record in 2004 when Steve Nash won his first MVP award with a 62-20 record. 2005, excuse me. They had the best record in the NBA when Steve Nash won his first MVP award. They beat out Andres' Miami Heat, who have 59-23 record, right? And a lot of people thought, he shouldn't have gotten the award over Shaq, even though at that time he led the league in assists in 2 consecutive years, 2 consecutive seasons, and was considered the best team. Then we go to the next year when he won his second MVP award. People said, Kobe averaged 35 that year and LeBron averaged 31. But LeBron's team was 42-40, 19 missed the playoffs, and Kobe's team was 34-48, which was 11th in the Western Conference.
He made the playoffs that year.
No, but he made the playoffs that year.
He made the playoffs. LeBron.
The Cavs did.
But let me back up Marcus.
They also the Pistons.
Hold on one second. Let me back up Marcus here. 14 years later, is Shaq still not salty and bitter that he didn't win the MVP trophy? Or is he bitter about not winning the Finals MVP trophy? He's bitter about not winning the MVP trophy.
He's bitter about
14 years later, Shaq still talks about it on TNT about how he got robbed that year in Miami, that he didn't win the MVP trophy. The MVP trophy means more to the player. The MVP trophy means more to the player. It's more to their legacy winning. Shaq only has one MVP trophy. Kobe only has one. How is that possible? You get what I'm saying? It means more to them. How can you sit here and argue and say it doesn't?
We remember them from their heroic performances. We remember Shaquille O'Neal for his 38-point-per-game finals performance. Superstars define their legacies in the playoffs. We've came to the conclusion that players of those caliber are not judged November to April. We judge them April to June. And in April and May, they need to be great to lead their team to the finals. And when it comes to the biggest stage, with their supporting cast, they have to get it done. They have to bring it home for their team, and that's why they're rewarded.
And I'm not
Branden, let me
that
ask
point.
you this.
You know what? I'm not disputing your point. What I'm trying to have you understand is that they don't need the Finals MVP trophies for them to be great. They have the championship. You are absolutely right. I cannot sit here and deny that they don't need to be great for championships. Championships and Finals MVPs are two entirely different things. You can have a player win an NBA championship, not win the Finals MVP, and still be great. Cedric Maxwell, a player for my Celtics, Cornbread Maxwell, won the Finals MVP. Is anybody still talking about who he is now? No.
And Branden,
we're talking about superstars. We're talking about superstars. We're not talking
Branden
about
and
regular
Andres.
roller players.
Branden
We're
and
talking
Andres.
about superstars. We're talking about superstars.
Only a goofball would look at Steph Curry's resume, acknowledge that he's the greatest shooter ever, a two-time MVP, first ever unanimous MVP in the history of the league, and three-time champion, and say, well, he doesn't have a Finals MVP, so I gotta hold that against him.
But you know what, Marcus? Again, it goes back to my point. You have him top 5 in your list of point guards, and he has 0 Finals MVPs. How is that even
5 tries?
And 5 times. He doesn't have one, but he's your top. But he's your top 2.
His reputation is coming up small in big moments. That is his reputation. Marcus,
that's a false narrative, but okay.
Let me ask you,
it's a false narrative.
Let me ask you something. Marcus, let me ask you something. Who's better, James Harden or Kawhi Leonard?
I'm the wrong person to ask that.
Answer my question. I don't care.
James Harden.
James Harden. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at James Harden's resume, right? He has a 2018 MVP, right? Kawhi has 2 Finals MVP, 2 rings. Yep. He was Defensive Player of the Year twice. So why do you think James Harden is better than Kawhi Leonard, despite the fact that James Harden has an MVP and Kawhi Leonard has 2 Finals MVP? Please
because Kawhi Leonard, if you missed my status earlier on Facebook, is the ultimate trust fund baby in the NBA. Every situation he steps into is a ready-made situation. The reason his resume is looked at differently than Harden's is because he has championships. But he is the beneficiary.
So now we're talking about championships. Okay, continue.
But that's not the debate. That's not the debate. The debate is Finals MVP.
Carl and I have never disputed that championships matter.
No.
We'd be ignorant to do that. What we're saying
MVP.
is that when you're comparing greats, one of the things we look at with Kobe, which I'm coming to you, Branden, look at that 0-1 series against the Lakers and Sixers, right? Shaq won 3 consecutive Finals MVPs.
Correct.
But if we really look at that series, because everyone keeps saying, oh, well, Shaq carried Kobe. Funny people say that. Shaq averaged 30.4 points per game that entire playoffs. Kobe averaged 29.4. So much for carrying. Go to the finals. Shaq averaged 28.7 points per game. Kobe averaged 28.5. Iverson averaged 31 points per game for the entire season. So it's clear, even though Iverson didn't win Finals MVP, he was more valuable to his team. Shaq won the Finals MVPs, but Iverson's legacy was what he did with that team during that season, which I know Andres thinks is overinflated. But the point is, he still led that team to 56 wins and won the MVP award. MVPs matter. Finals MVPs do, but not as much as regular season MVPs.
And the other part of it is, as I said in my opening statement, the players care more about the MVP trophy. They care more about
it. What the players care about. It's what it means more.
So what the players care about doesn't matter. That's basically what you're telling me. It doesn't matter. So for them, for their legacy, it doesn't matter. That's basically what you're saying right now. Andres,
that's what he just said. Tagging Andres.
Andres, go. Up because they are granted a speech to talk about the MVP.
Okay, so I'm going to use you as an example. You're an athlete. That means you don't care about the MVP trophy. You care more about the Finals MVP than the regular season trophy. That's basically what you're saying right now.
I'd rather be the best player on the winning team, be rewarded. I came up big for my team and win a championship. Yes, you are absolutely.
Branden,
don't people talk about how Giannis choked last year in games after the Bucks 2-0 lead? Don't people talk about that, despite the fact that he was an MVP? He was the best player in the league, and in games 3 through 6, Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors have been in a prison. and people talk about how he choked. Don't you guys talk
But
about
that
that?
has nothing to do with the Finals MVP trophy. Marcus and I'm going to say it for the umpteenth time. We're not sitting here and debating championships. Championships do matter. The playoffs matter. What I'm trying to have you understand, it's like when you have a cake. You win the championship is the cake. The icing on the cake for the superstar player, yes, is the Finals MVP trophy, but it's not the end-all, be-all. People don't care what players don't walk around saying, you know what, I'm going into the series, I have to win the Finals MVP trophy. No.
Andres.
But do they want to win the MVP trophy?
No.
Yes.
One point to that. Your best player has to be the best player on the floor in order for you to win that game. Majority of the time. All the Finals MVPs, for the most part, have been the best player on their team. Kawhi Leonard, KD, LeBron. That's 4 in a row. They were the best player on the best team, on the winning team.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something, Carl. In 2011, LeBron had the biggest choke job in the history of the NBA of the sport, right?
God, here he goes.
Right? And he had 2 MVPs, but he was regarded as a choker despite that. Why is that?
He was described as a choker because he couldn't succeed in the postseason or in the finals. But that has nothing to do with him.
But
winning.
he has two.
That has nothing. Does that have anything to do with him winning? Does that have anything to do with him winning the finals?
Yes, because he needs to be the best player on that team.
But he has 2 MVPs.
No, Steph Curry had better numbers. And again, I'll go back to the Steph Curry point. He had better numbers than Andre Iguodala, but for some reason, Andre Iguodala won the Finals MVP.
Ridiculous.
I'm glad you said that.
But why is that? Why is
that?
You
said that. Listen. In games 4 through 6, the Warriors outscored the Cavs by 46 points with Iguodala on the court, and they outscored the Cavs by 4 points with Iguodala off the court. Games 1 through 3, the Warriors were outscored by 4 points. With Curry on the court, and they outscored the Cavs by 1 point. So why the hell were the Warriors better on the court?
So basically, you're saying,
I'm not done.
Go ahead, finish, please, finish.
I'm not done. In games 2 and 3, Curry had as many turnovers as field goals. He got locked up by Matthew Dellavedova. In games 4 through 6, Iguodala was more efficient. He had a higher offensive rating. He had a higher defensive rating.
Less responsibility.
I'm not finished. I'm sorry, I'm not finished. And he held LeBron to 7-22 shooting in game 4. So please tell me how Steph Curry was not the best player on that team.
Okay, so your point is that Andre Iguodala deserved that trophy, right? That's what you're saying.
100%.
Branden says no. Branden disagrees with that.
No. I just said that.
No, Branden disagrees with that.
You don't really believe that. Stop.
You don't believe that.
No.
You believe in your heart of hearts that Steph Curry. So you believe in your heart of hearts that Andre Iguodala deserved that trophy in 2015.
He performed better.
Answer my question. No, don't give me a long answer. Answer the question. Do you believe in your heart of hearts?
Yes. Why to spell it? Y-E-S. Yes.
Wow. Then you're wrong.
Okay,
so I just gave you the facts. How are they wrong?
Let me hop back in this because you Klay Thompson and Steph Curry over there are slick. They think they're changing the narrative. All right, we're not making this about championships. We will never sit up here and say that championships don't matter.
Correct.
Right.
So
that's correct.
When you make it to the finals, a better team is always going to be the better player. We've seen that with LeBron James the last 4 years, basically.
Correct.
So, but there was no denying that Michael Jordan had arrived. And we knew he had arrived because his brilliance during the regular season spoke volumes for his play on the court. And the regular season MVP award is people saying you are head and heels above your competition. Because think about it, on a nightly basis, it is. Because before coronavirus, Giannis was on his way to a 70 or 69 win season and his second consecutive MVP award. He would have joined 10 other people in NBA history to win back-to-back MVP awards, right. Steph Curry being one of them. So again, only a hater or a goofball would sit there at the end of Steph Curry's career and say, well, you know what? He doesn't have a finals MVP, so I got to really hold that against him.
Yes,
but everyone holds it against him, though. Everyone holds it against him, though.
But here's the
thing.
Listen,
hold on, Andres, then I'm going to let you go. But here's the thing with Steph. Here's the thing with Steph, Andres. Everyone knows that he is the linchpin and the catalyst for the Warriors doing anything, period. Whether he has the finals MVP or not, we all know that he is the straw that stirs that drink. With Durant, without Durant, we've seen it countless times. They go as Steph Curry goes. The crowd feeds off of him. The team feeds off of him. Klay feeds off of him. So he is their most valuable player in the franchise, period. With or without a finals MVP. We know that. Now the floor is yours.
But you said that if Kyrie and Kevin Love were healthy in the 2015 finals, they would win. So how does that factor into Curry being the most influential player? Now, I'm glad you brought up Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the greatest of all time. Carl, I have a question for you. Who won the MVP in 1993?
Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley. What did Michael Jordan say previous to the finals?
What did Michael Jordan say? What? I'm sorry?
Previous to the finals.
I don't recall.
He said, "I don't care about the MVP. I'll win the championship," and he did, and everyone remembered him for that.
Wait a minute, how many did he have at
You
that
said
point?
championship. You didn't say Finals MVP. That's not the
Wait,
argument.
I got him.
He won the
That's
finals.
not the argument.
He won the finals
Wait,
MVP.
Andre,
That's
how
not
many
the
MVPs
argument. You're
how
not
many
listening.
MVPs
That's not.
Michael
We're
have
not
at that point?
debating
You're not listening. Here we
championships.
go.
We're not debating
He
championships.
won
But
the
then-
finals MVP too.
But we're not
Andre,
debating the
how
Finals
long-
MVP. We're not debating the championship.
You're not understanding the best players. Michael Jordan had to be the best player on the Bulls for them to win. If another player was better than him, they would not win. The best
Wait,
player has to
hold.
be the best player.
But let me ask you
Andres.
this. You know what? Andres likes to do research. The NBA had a list of 50 greatest players in 1997. How many of them have Finals MVPs compared to how many MVPs they have on that list?
We're in 2020. We're in 2020.
I'm answering a question. We're historians. We're basketball historians here. At that time in 1997, they made a list of 50 greatest players, and they have a bunch of players on that list that do not have a Finals MVP. Does that mean that they're not great? Scottie Pippen is on that list. He has 0 Finals MVPs. Does it mean that he's not great? He doesn't have a legacy.
But his job wasn't to get Finals MVP though.
We're in 2020.
Andre.
It doesn't
His
matter.
job
It's still part of
his job-
NBA history. You can't
his
negate
job-
that from
So
there.
why did LeBron throw the 2011 finals?
Oh, here we're not getting into that. Andre, stay on the train track.
No.
What does that have to do with
Because we're not
anything?
talking about LeBron.
What does that
I
have
want
to
to
do
ask
with
you a
anything?
question, Andres. When Michael Jordan
The
made his
narrative.
comment,
Listen. LeBron threw the 2011 finals because if Dwayne Wade won Finals MVP, the narrative would be,
If.
LeBron
We're doing
couldn't
another
be-
if that you
No,
can't prove.
No.
You do.
What do you mean I can't
Drop
prove
the
it?
pick, Carl.
So you
there's
can literally
literally-
prove. So basically, you're telling me that there's proof that Dwayne Wade said or LeBron said, I dropped the ball because if he won the Finals MVP, I would have a problem. That's basically what you're saying.
speculation.
There's teammates that said that he quit on the team. There's literally teammates that said
But
that he quit on
again,
the
I'm
team.
going to go back to what you said. You saying that the reason why he dropped the ball is because he couldn't handle Dwayne Wade winning the MVP. Is that a fact? Is that a
Absolutely.
fact?
So why
even
wouldn't he
with
just
that
play
fact.
better?
And you can
Why
prove
wouldn't
that
he
fact.
play better?
They didn't want to wait to win Finals MVP. He could have played slightly
Can
better.
you prove-
If he
can you
if he
prove
didn't
that?
want Wade to win Finals MVP, why wouldn't he just play better?
He didn't want to.
Can you prove
Okay,
that?
okay.
Can you prove that, Andres?
Now, Carl, let me ask
You
this,
could go
'cause I
back.
wanna
You could go back and watch the film. You could go
Look
back
at
and
Brandon's
watch the
face.
film.
Brandon's just like, man, we
Andres,
just lost.
Andres, let me go
Even
back
we
to your
just lost.
MJ comment. How many regular season MVPs did MJ have at the time he made that comment?
1993,
Yeah, when he made
Right.
that comment, how many regular season MVPs did he have?
like probably three or four.
Okay,
Three.
he had 3 regular season MVPs and 2 chips, right? So of course it's easy for him to say, to hell with the regular season MVP. I'm going after the Finals MVP.
So why did he say that though?
Because he already was sitting on
He
3.
needs
His
more.
legacy
He
was
needs
cemented.
more. And he has
Well,
to
what-
be the best
what-
So
player.
then why did in
What-
1997, why did he say that he was upset about not winning the MVP trophy?
What?
Why in
Two different
1997?
situations though.
You want both, but
Huh?
the ultimate prize is the championship. And but winning the championship means you have to be the best player. The Chicago Bulls need Michael Jordan to be the best player on that team. They cannot win having Scottie Pippen.
They need him to be the best player throughout the course of the regular season to even get to the playoffs.
Oh my God, are you serious? You're gonna act like they're not they're a playoff team
They,
without
they
him.
didn't win. They didn't win
They were in
55
the
games
playoffs
the
without
following
him.
year.
Literally without him.
You guys are so predictable because what was their record after Michael retired the second year? They won 55 the year, the first year he was
34,
gone. What was their
31,
record the
They
second
lost
year?
half the roster.
34,
They lost
31.
half the roster, and they
34,
lost half the roster,
31.
and they were injured. They lost half the roster, and they were injured.
Okay, so
Terrible rebuttal though. Continue.
that's not a terrible rebuttal because y'all making it seem like, oh, they didn't need Michael Jordan. Michael
They
Jordan was
lost half
clearly
the
the
team.
No,
difference
because
They
maker.
we're
lost
just
half the
saying-
team.
I'm what he's
lost the
saying. They
team.
need him to be the best player on the team for them to win the championship. That
Games where
equals-
Michael was
So- so-
underperforming,
so let-
and they were still winning.
So let me get this straight. Let's go through the years. The Bulls won, I believe it was 69 games one year, 67
97.
games one year, 72 games one year. I think they won 62 another year.
69.
Their winning percentage throughout the regular season was crazy. They had home court advantage, I believe, in most of those series, especially when it came to the finals. So you're sitting here telling me with a straight face that being the best player over the course of 6 months is not more impressive, even though it's harder to do and harder to obtain than winning the Finals MVP, which is the course of 4 to 7 games over 2 weeks. That's what you're telling me.
Anyone could just get hot in 4 to 7 games. What you're saying? It's just any 4 to 7 games. It's not like.
So Branden, let me ask you this: in 2004, when Chauncey Billups won Finals MVP, are you telling me that he was the most valuable player, or the defense, which I believe in that playoffs, and Andres can fact check, out of 20 games, they held opponents to under 70 points or 65 in 8 of them. That defense, Detroit basketball, you remember that, was the real MVP. And they shut the Lakers down and gave them a gentleman's sweep. But you're sitting here telling me that Chauncey Billups was the catalyst for that team, or was it their defense?
The ego of the Lakers duo is why they lost the series.
That really must have hurt, Brandon. That hurt.
Which one, Brendan?
The Lakers duo of Shaq and Kobe, their ego beef is why they lost the finals.
They weren't the same team that they were in 2004 as other years, though.
That was the Lakers. That wasn't them.
Before they got to the Lakers, they were defensive monsters. Go back and look at the tapes. They were holding teams in the early 2000s to under 67 points. They were known as a defensive team. So Chauncey Billups won the Finals MVP, but anyone who watched them that postseason could tell that the real MVP was their collective unit. That's why we highlight.
He was too young to remember that Finals, Marcus. He was too young to remember.
Okay, but the 2004 Lakers weren't the same team as the Lakers were in the three-peat, though. So that's
how come they were heavily favored? How come they were heavily favored to win the series?
They weren't favored.
They were favored.
They weren't favored with Karl Malone, Gary Payton, Kobe Bryant, and Shaquille O'Neal.
They definitely were favored.
I thought we can't use odds because that's what I did, and you guys killed me for it. So I thought we can't use that notion now. I
never said that. I'm just saying the Lakers were heavily favored.
But you just bashed Brandon 3 weeks ago for using odds, though.
Yeah, you.
No.
You just killed me. You all of you guys killed me for that.
No. So I killed you because you took too long to make your point. You did a better job tonight. Congratulations. But weeks ago, I killed you because you took too long to make your point.
I'm not disputing that.
Okay, guys, we're running up on time. Any final thoughts? Any final points? So are we just going to let the fans decide?
Kawhi Leonard with the load managing, which I'm not denying. Load management is a load of crap. But that's what he does. He takes himself out of the MVP conversation because he misses games. That is not hurting.
People remember him for his finals run. He had the third most scored points in a finals run.
Correct. But again, this is the point again that you're not listening to. People don't care about the Finals MVP trophy.
Yes,
the
they
players
do.
don't. The players care about winning
That's
the
what they play for. That's what
they
play for.
They play for the championship. They play for the championship. They play for the championship.
The best player on the winning team, which is the ultimate prize.
Carl, let me ask you something. If Jason Tatum won MVP in the near future and the Celtics lost in the first round and he choked, he averaged like 5 points a game, are you going to hold him accountable, yes or no?
I'm going to hold him accountable, but that has nothing to do with winning the Finals MVP trophy.
So
that was a terrible argument.
What
does his terrible performance have to do with the Finals MVP?
Because you need him to be great in the playoffs.
Andres,